My husband and son both lied to me. Original post. I'm 34 female, husband is 36 male, we've been married for 12 years. A few weeks ago, my husband said that he has seen another woman handle situations that he didn't think I would be able to. I tried to talk to him about why it bothered me, and he just told me it was a passing comment, and I shouldn't take it so seriously. That he had meant to simply compliment her by saying she was handling so much on her own, and he was impressed by it. I told him it was completely unnecessary and hurtful to compare her to me to compliment her. He told me I was being unreasonable and jealous, and that he didn't mean anything by it. After that, he didn't say anything else about it, so I dropped it. Then yesterday when I came home from work, I saw a pair of women's Fendi sunglasses on our kitchen island, kind of hidden by our fruit bowl. I picked them up and asked my husband whose they were. He looked confused and was like, "Aren't they yours?" And I said no. Then our oldest son, 11, is sitting at the kitchen table and goes, "Oh, those are my friend Allison's. I took them home on accident." I was immediately suspicious. These are very expensive sunglasses. And I know Allison's mother, and she doesn't seem like the type to let her child bring something worth that much money into school. My son kept insisting they were hers, and he had just taken them home accidentally on the bus, and he'd return them to her tomorrow. But I said no, and that I'd return them to her mother in person so I could make sure they got to them safely. When I spoke to Allison's mother, she confirmed that they weren't Allison's, and that neither she nor her daughter owned sunglasses like that. When I told my son and my husband this, they both feigned ignorance. My son went from saying he could have sworn they were Allison's to, well, maybe not maybe. I don't know whose they are. And then my husband said that he does remember taking the sunglasses out of our son's backpack when he was getting out his lunch stuff. Then my younger son, 9, just came home and recognized the sunglasses. They are Noelle's, the woman my husband helps out sometimes. The same one who he told me to not be upset that he compared me to her. I'm going to confront him when he gets home. I don't know what to say to him. I feel as though I'm going to immediately burst into tears. Can someone please give me advice on what to say? And also just general advice, please? I never thought I would be in this situation. Now for the top advice before reading the update. My main concern is why your son helped him lie. And if you know he helped her, why he has to be secretive? Seems too many red flags in your relationship. The son knew his mother would be upset to have that Noelle woman in her home. He also may have seen his father together with that woman in a situation. A, either his father told him to hush up, or B, he knew his mother would be very upset about. None of it is good or positive, really. By the way, other women leaves things in their lovers' houses, just so the wife can find them, and fight with or leave their husbands. This is how I found out my husband was cheating. His mistress left her comb on the floor of my car. I know the truth. You have one chance to tell me your side. Then you get to choose marriage counselor or divorce lawyer. Lie to me again and it will just be divorce lawyer. Also, talk to your son about lying. I think this is the more nuanced response. Considering husband is lying, gaslighting, and bringing the kids into the lie, it's better to tackle this head on and get honest answers. Hope he already knows what's up. She just needs him to admit it. Record a conversation though, Opie. You'll need that for the divorce attorney. Don't confront. Don't say another word to your husband and your older son. Call a lawyer immediately and hire a PI. Get your ducks in a row for a divorce. He has already moved on to Noelle and your son is backing him up. Don't bother to do anything other than leave and show your independence without him. Is it painful? Don't give him the pleasure of seeing you upset. Do this now and play the long game since he is cheating. If the house is in both names or her name, she should not leave. She needs to establish that she is the primary parent, that leaving the house will be a hardship on the kids. Therefore, she should get the house into divorce. She should pack his bags and put them in the driveway, then change the locks. So when he gets home from work, he'll know he's not welcome. Leave your divorce lawyer's info with this stuff. Then, have a serious talk with your older son about the 2 very wrong things his dad is doing and that he is helping him do by lying to her. Cheating is never something to be supportive or proud of because it is despicable and will break not only your partner's or spouse's heart, but will destroy the whole family unit because all trust is gone. Now for the update. So I found a pair of sunglasses on my kitchen table. My oldest son immediately claimed they were his friends, even though it was pretty obvious they were an adult woman's. Even after the story began to fall apart, him and his father continued to lie. My youngest son ended up identifying the sunglasses. When he got home, my husband admitted they were Noelle's. She has been over there while I was at work. My husband claims he has not realized they were hers. He thought they were mine, which is why he didn't move them. My older son realized whose they were immediately, which is why he lied about them. He knew I was about to find it all out and was trying to cover. My younger son recognized them because apparently they have gone with Noelle on numerous places on my husband's days off while I was at work. I don't know what he told my older son, but he told my youngest son not to tell me about Noelle and her son hanging out with them because I would feel bad about being left out because I was at work. I returned the glasses to Noelle, who seemed horrified. She was under the assumption I knew about their hangouts. I asked her, why did you think I would be okay with this? And she looked really confused and told me, why would I care if we were separated anyway? I told her we absolutely were not separated. We were very much still together. Apparently, my husband told her we had not been together except for cohabitating and co-parenting for months now. I confronted my husband with this information, and he didn't deny it. He apologized, but said he had developed feelings for Noelle, but didn't want to risk our marriage until he knew if they were true feelings or just attraction. He left the house, but Noelle wants nothing to do with him because now she knows the truth. He lied to her as well, and she's furious. I'm speaking to a lawyer today, and I'm not going to speak to him again except through lawyers, since I don't have anything else to say to him. I really feel for you, as your world has been turned upside down. I can imagine you'd have so many questions to ask him and your sons. I've been wanting to use this as an opportunity to teach your boys what not to do in a relationship for when they're older. I hope you can eventually find peace and forgiveness so that you can move forward. Perhaps this will be a blessing in disguise, and you meet a true gentleman that is worth of your love. Thank you for your beautiful and optimistic response. I'm going to try to do that. Thank you very much. Wow, he's awful. You're doing the right thing. To ask your kids to lie to you is the lowest of the low. At least you can now go to bed at night in peace knowing that you've taken out the trash. I'm torn. As a dad, it is the lowest to ask your kids to lie to hide your affair from the kid's mom. Or is it the lowest to have your kids hang out with you and your affair partner? Absolutely both. Imagine putting children in that position. We bring them up to tell the truth and have respect, but then he encourages them to lie and hide things from their mother. Scum. Listen, as an adult who found themselves having to cover for their father's transgressions at a young age, please put the blame where it should be. A child of 11 will do anything in their power to keep the peace and keep their parents together. It makes them feel like they have some power, which makes them feel safe. Please do not further parentify your son, as your husband has already done, by making him a player in this situation. This is not the time for conversations about lying and right and wrong. That can come later. My suggestions is speak to your sons and apologize that they had to be involved at all, and tell them that you and your husband love them no matter what. Sorry you and your children have to deal with this. This is really well put. You can tell a lot of the other commenters here came from good families and don't understand the stress a kid can feel to keep their parents from fighting. Next story. My fiancé is planning on leaving me to be in an open relationship with his co-worker. I, 24 female, had been with my fiancé, 27 male, for 4 years, and he proposed to me on my birthday last year. I always thought our relationship was great and that we were unstoppable, but I guess that I was wrong. Usually, he has always let me use his phone, for games, or because my phone would screw up. Recently, he was being very distant, and even getting upset if I ask for his phone. We're always open about our phones, and if the other would like to be sure if we haven't been disloyal, we were both okay with it. I shrugged it off as maybe he's planning something for my birthday since it's coming up. Then a couple days ago, he asked me if we could try opening up the relationship. This took me by surprise because he's never been the type to get physical or emotional with anyone else but me. I tell him I'm uncomfortable with the thought of that, and he kept explaining how it could build us up emotionally, to see other people's perspectives and how we can improve our love. I continued telling him no, and saying that it doesn't feel right. I never wanted to be with anyone else but him. He has been trying to convince me for the past day, but I didn't budge. He ended up saying whatever, and going on a walk for a couple hours. When he left, I cried my eyes out because it made me think he wasn't being loyal. Unluckily for him, he had left his phone on the counter in the kitchen, so I took it upon myself to check. And to my horror, I saw my worst nightmare. He was messaging a coworker we'll call Kim for a couple weeks. Messages saying I love you and let's plan a little date together. I cried and continued reading. Then I saw that they were trying to plan a way to leave me or get an open relationship started. Seeing as though the open relationship plan failed, they started saying that he should leave me and they can be in an open relationship. I'm so hurt and distraught by this. I thought he would be with me through thick and thin. Not to mention, I have a 6-year-old daughter that has absolutely loved him and thought of him as her dad. I'm crushed and betrayed for both me and my daughter. She was going to be our flower girl and have the prettiest dress, and now I have to tell her everything. My worst nightmare is coming to fruition, and I can't stop crying. I'm trying to be strong for her, but it's so hard. As I type this, I'm watching my daughter play with her dolls while watching TV, and my fiancé is upstairs playing a game. For now, I'm thinking of my next steps and staying strong for my girl. Now for the top advice before the mini update. What a prick! He wanted to open it up so he could cheat on you without it being cheating. All this drivel about learning how to be a better couple. Sorry you and your daughter are going through this. It sounds cliche, but it really is better you found this out now before getting married. Not good either way, but he is a loser. OP, you don't need a man like your fiancé. It's over when your partner wants an open relationship. Leave him. Ex-fiancé, I would hope. Oh my god, what a douche canoe. Hey, OP, I'm cheating on you already. Can we open the relationship so I can pretend I'm not a cheating douche canoe? What a piece of turd. Complete piece of turd. I feel so horrible for OP. This must be incredibly difficult for her. But also, at least they weren't married yet. If the POS kept this to himself longer, he would have essentially trapped her. Definitely tell your family, his family, and your friends about what's happening. It's easier to be strong when you lean on a support group. Yes, cheaters thrive in the dark. Expose him for the POS that he is. I sent my now ex-husband's dating profile to his sister. Edit. I'm taking everyone's advice, and I do plan on leaving. I'm going to come up with a plan to put all of his stuff out whilst working one day and completely cut him out. Also, a couple questions I've seen that I should clarify on. With his messages, he had asked me a couple days ago to open the relationship, and I told him no. I should have clarified that for the past day he had been non-stop pestering me over opening the relationship. My fault. At the time of writing, I was so distraught. After asking me the first time, he told Kim what my answer was. And Kim had said, you should just leave at this point, etc., etc. But he thought it was best to keep trying to convince me. Like I said, that was my bad. It was mostly Kim saying that he should leave me. Also, some people may be confused at him leaving his phone while he left. We live in a wide open rural area, and usually when he needs to blow off steam, he goes through the backyard and to the woods that's a little down the yard. I never had a need to check his phone, but I trusted him at the time. He usually left to blow off steam or something. Again, I'm so sorry for any confusion during my distraught time of writing this. And thank you again. Last story. My 39 male ex-wife, 37 female wants to reconcile our marriage. I, 39 male, have been divorced from my ex-wife for 7 years now. We were together for 8 before that and married for 4 years. We have 2 children together ages 14 and 12. We co-parent and each get our own week with the children. I love my wife deeply, but the sad truth is she couldn't stay away from the male attention. She is a very beautiful woman, has been her whole life. Men would always look when they walked by, and I used to think how lucky I was she was mine, until I found out she was entertaining these men as well. I had found texts in her phone multiple times that I had let go of because it was over the phone. Then I'd find out she allowed them to take her on dates or out to bars secretly after her work shift ended. She promised it was never intimate, and I never had any proof it was. But who knows? She said she just liked the compliments and the idea of how many guys like to pay attention to her, that it gave her some weird high. That wasn't my cup of tea though, so I ended the marriage. She's spent the last years in therapy, in which she's been diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder and OCD. She claims she's doing really well. And at our last drop-off with the kids, she told me she had told her therapist she'd like to reconcile her marriage a year ago, and she hasn't been on any dates or tried to be flirtatious. She said her goal was to fix us, that she wanted to be a family again if I was willing to try. Knowing she has a diagnosis for why she wants this attention so badly, and her actively getting help to contain these behaviors, opens my mind up greatly to the possibility of a happy marriage. But I am also not fully sure I can trust her. I want nothing more than my family back, but I don't want a repeat of the first time. Advice? You were divorced for 7 years. Assuming she's over her emotional issues, there is still the issue of neither of you being the same person as you were 7 years ago. How did she spend her 7 years? I assume it can be relevant, as you may hold resentments towards her. Never mind how she spent it. How did Opie? I can't imagine after 7 years of divorce wanting to remarry the person, as I'd assume that I'd be a completely different person. I do believe that people can change, and 7 years is a long time. So maybe Opie's wife has made some big changes / progress. So in this situation, it seems to me like starting completely fresh and dating again would be a better option than jumping straight back into marriage. They'll basically need to get to know each other again in my eyes. I almost believe she wants back because she's getting older. Hugh divorced when she was in her physical prime. My guess is she has been getting significantly less attention as she has aged and wants to go back to the man who loves her for her. I was thinking this too. She wants Opie back for the love and security it offers her. Her looks are fading, and she knows it. This thought crossed my mind as well. Great that she's been working on herself, but at 37, the dating thing may be dwindling. I'd be concerned about her motivations. And it would take a lot to prove to me she's faithful, after literally dating guys behind Opie's back. I also have a hard time believing it wasn't physical. Maybe it wasn't, but she was already so far past the boundary that there's no reason to believe her. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 28 male, have been married to my wife, 28 female, for 7 years. And although that was very young to get married, we had been together since year 8 of secondary school. And it's safe to say I think she's the one. Now, I come from a white family in Britain, whereas she comes from a black family and she's dark-skinned. My family never were racist towards her and were immediately accepting. And her and my mother are pretty much best friends. And last year, we gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. 3 years ago, though, my twin sister got a new boyfriend, 30 male. Me and him didn't have any problems as we hardly ever spoke, but he seemed nice enough. So nice, in fact, that I helped him and my sister do the letters for their wedding. When we were starting, I checked through the guest list, and after a quick skim through, I noticed my wife's name wasn't on there. I questioned my sister about it, and she directed me to her fiancé. He stated that he didn't think it would be appropriate. I asked him what he meant, and he said that it wouldn't really seem right for us to mix, and she would be the only blackie there. I had a total outrage at this, and told my sister to cross off my name because if my wife doesn't go, I don't go. And I left her house and began to drive back to mine. I told my wife what he said, and she said I should just go to not stir up any family fights. But I told her that she was family now, and if she doesn't go, then I don't either. This whole argument has caused my family to pick sides, with my mom and dad being on mine, but with most being on my sister's. Lots of family members have called me up and told me to just come, and I decided to ask my brother-in-law if he was going to change his mind, and he put his foot down and said no. My sister now is heartbroken because our parents aren't going, nor our grandparents, but she still refuses to invite my wife. I am really torn because I want to make my family happy, but then again, my wife is my family. So am I the a-hole? Edit. Seen a lot of people saying about invites. Even if I was invited, I would not go. I just want my family to apologize to my wife. I explained to people who are on her side my reasoning, and as it turns out, the fiancé lied to them and told them that me and him had an argument. After I explained to them, about half of the people still attending announced that they weren't. Now for the top comments before reading the mini update. Not the a-hole. Your sister should be upset that she's marrying a racist, not that you don't support the union. Considering she's alright with the issue, I'm less worried for her sake that she's marrying someone like that. Sounds like she's one too. Oh, she is. Lay down with bigots and you're a bigot. Is that simple? They should have been sisters hill to die on. Instead, she sacrificed her sibling and parents on it. Your wife is more family than he will ever be. The fact your sister would even marry him after that comment is absolutely disgusting. I'd go no contact with both of them. They don't deserve any of you in their life. You're absolutely not the a-hole and do not go under any circumstances. I'm glad you defended your wife against such blatant racism, and I'm truly disgusted with your sister. Really tell sis she ain't family no more. Not the a-hole, of course. You're doing the right thing. You need to have your wife's back and by extension your son's. If you knuckle under now, there's going to be even more and more blatant stupid crap from your brother-in-law, and possibly more of the family if they see him getting away with it. Now for the update. Great news, everybody. The fiancé has been in a way banished from the family after everybody learned why I wasn't attending. I have also cut most ties with my sister. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not standing up for my wife when my uncle made a gold digger joke because what she said mortified me? I haven't seen my mom in a year. Last year, there was a big fight between me, my wife, and my mother about how Christmas would work and who would host. And that's when my mom decided she didn't want to see me anymore. It sucks, but I'm not going to beg her. However, my wife and I have a disagreement regarding our 1.5-year-old son. She thinks my mom is a horrid person for not sending him gifts, cards, asking for pictures. I think if my mom actually wants no contact, she's doing the respectful thing. Also, we both agree she wouldn't be allowed to see him, so I don't really get what my wife wants. I have asked her to not badmouth my mom to any of my family. I want to preserve the few relationships I have left. And it is honestly embarrassing. My grandparents gave my mom zero help with me because not their kid, not their problem. And that was with them being fairly close to my mom. So I can't imagine how they would react to hearing my wife's views on this. Recently, we ran into my uncle at my grandparents' house. It was awkward as I know that the dude hates me and is 100% on my mom's team. But we were all guilted into staying for lunch. My grandmother was trying to get my uncle to come for Thanksgiving, and he got pissy and said no, and that she knows he spent all holidays with my mom. My wife then asked how my mom was, and I felt myself cringe. My uncle said she's great. My wife replied, we wouldn't know as she never sends any gifts for our son, so maybe she's dead. I gave her a look begging her to stop, while my uncle's wife just burst out laughing. My uncle asked if she was kidding, or if she really thought my mom was going to buy gifts for a child she did not know. My wife went on a rant about how she would do anything to have any amount of contact with our future grandchildren. My uncle laughed and said, wow, such a gold digger, you put my ex to shame. My wife immediately looked like she was going to cry, but I just couldn't bring myself to say anything. I was mortified, and I'd begged her not to bring up the gift thing. She asked if I was going to defend her. I said no, and she ran out of the room. We left and she is furious with me. She says I betrayed her and that my mom is going to laugh when she hears of this. I told her that she humiliated me and I had begged her to stop with the gifts. Not a-hole. Your wife making a big deal about not getting gifts from someone who is no contact with you is absurd and need not be defended. We all know if his mom did send gifts or request photos, wife would refuse them and probably rant about how horrible his mom is to want access to the kids but not them. Everyone sucks here. Not because you didn't defend her, but I have a feeling there's a good reason your mom and uncle want nothing to do with you. I would assume it's more to do with the wife than with him. Although I guess it still makes him an a-hole to bring a toxic person into his family and let her wreak havoc. His wife wanted to host Christmas. So he invited his mom, because he knew no one else would come if his mom hosted her normal Christmas at the same time. And this is how mom replied. My wife really wanted to host Christmas, but no one would come if my mom hosted an alternative. So I asked my mom to come and she went insane, accusing me of wanting her to be martyr, and said to put my wife first but don't let her put her husband first. She was screaming about how her needs are just as important as my wife's. And why should her husband be forced to spend Christmas with us? She said she regrets having me and doesn't want to see me again. Everyone sucks here because you all sound like awful people. That's really all there is to it. I could try to get into details, but really, you all suck. Try to bring up your kid to be better. Good luck with that. Yeah, every single person in this story needs a timeout, a nap, and a snack. Not a-hole. Why is your wife so desperate for gifts from someone she's no contact with? She opened the door to everything that happened after asking about your mom, so she needs to live with it. How exactly does she want you to defend the indefensible? I think what the wife wants is for the mom to come begging to spend time with the kids, and tried bribing with gifts. She already said they're not going to allow the mom to see the kids, so I think she wanted the mom to ask so she can say no. Next story. Am I the a-hole for backing out of going to my mother-in-law's house for Thanksgiving after I overheard her conversation with my husband? My brother, 19, passed away in a motorcycle accident a month ago. It was so devastating. It's also fresh, and grief has been heavy on me. But I try to carry on with my life and visit the family and my in-laws. I basically do my best not to miss an event, especially with my in-laws. My husband and I were invited to Thanksgiving by mother-in-law. I was planning to go. I even went shopping for a dress, which is hard to do due to grief, but I kept it together. Last night, we were at her house and I excused myself to the bathroom while she and my husband and his dad were talking. I came back and heard her ask why I didn't turn her Thanksgiving invitation down. I was puzzled. I decided to stop and listen more. My husband said that it was my mother-in-law's fault she invited me, but she said that she did it out of courtesy and that she didn't think I'd accept the invite. She said that now I'll potentially ruin the celebration with my negative vibe and will make things awkward for everybody because of my brother's passing. I was stunned. My husband replied saying that I do tend to get emotional usually. Now it's worse that there's death in the family. I was so upset I didn't know whether I should go home or pretend to not have heard this. I stayed quiet till we went home. There, I told him I won't be going to spend Thanksgiving with his mother and family. He asked why and started pressuring me to talk. I told him about a conversation he had with mother-in-law, and he got upset and accused me of stirring drama by snooping and eavesdropping on conversations that I wasn't part of. We got into a massive argument about it, and he kept saying that I was being too sensitive and unreasonable. His mom tried to call then texted about me not hearing their conversation properly, and that there was a huge misunderstanding. Now she's saying the guests will ask about me if I'm not there and there's going to be issues. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Get a divorce ASAP. This right here. OP is grieving, and all the in-laws are thinking about is the negative energy. Grieving is not negative energy. It is pain and hurt someone feels, and it was made so much worse by the husband and mother-in-law. OP, don't be with someone who can't support you. Someone who scolds you for eavesdropping, but who had the audacity to talk poorly about his wife behind her back and not protecting her. He is the issue. I hope OP has a safe place to go and spends the time there while looking for a divorce attorney. Marriage is about the good and the bad. What in the world? I am so sorry for your loss, first off. But they're all a-holes, obviously. The mother-in-law is manipulating and gaslighting you at an incredibly vulnerable time for you. To think that what you heard is incorrect, and your own husband, the one who has seen you lose your brother, witnessed your very valid grief, and now has the audacity to turn the blame to you because how dare you be too emotional and make a dramatic situation out of the death of your brother? I'm not going to say you need to dump that family, but you need to seriously think about how uncomfortable they are simply by your grieving. Instead of comforting you in a devastating time and making things easier for you, having compassion and empathy, they've decided to do the opposite. They are emotionally inept. And I dare say this is the first blaring red flag you've seen. Also, the fact that mother-in-law is trying to change the script in your head because you weren't supposed to hear what she said is pitiful. She obviously doesn't want you to think lowly of her, but that ship has sailed. Integrity is what we do when no one is looking or hearing, and this family has no integrity. I hope you find the support you deserve in this horrific time. I cannot imagine the grief you are experiencing, and this now has just made it all so much worse. Good luck. Not the a-hole by any stretch. Your husband and his family are incredibly insensitive. You have a negative vibe? Seriously? Were you supposed to just get over this in 2 days? It's not like a goldfish died. He describes OP as usually being emotional for him in a negative context, which can carry unsavory undertones. OP needs to reevaluate whether she's best off staying in this marriage or getting out of it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my father that he was not a good father to his daughters? The incident that sparked this is very small, but there is quite a bit of a background. A few days ago, I, 30 female, was leaving our small town to go to a metro city hospital for a minor procedure. My father, 58 male, came to pick me up and drop me off at the airport. He was using my car while I was gone. He is very fit and strong, and I am a small woman. I was struggling with my luggage, and he knew that pre-operation I should not lift extra weights, but he did not offer to help. He does these things often. In contrast, when my sister-in-law carries even a small bag of groceries, he runs to help. I was put off, but did not say anything. My brother did the same thing again yesterday. He still helps his wife and female friends, but while he has relied on my effective labor for years, he has never paid anything back. I have learned to be very independent as a result, but being vulnerable pre and post-op made me reflect on this. Of course, this goes back to our entire childhood. My father worked less than my mom, but never helped with any chores or childcare. Instead, he always gave her work. Dinner parties, house guests, etc. He was abusive to my mother when she protested, and at times to me and my sister. He is the nice guy for outsiders and has a respectful life. I remember my mom being completely submissive until I was 7 or 8, but after a while, she started fighting back, and she became a difficult person, abusive back and words with him and often being short-tempered with us. While I do not justify what she did, she has apologized profusely in both words and practical ways. My father has acknowledged that he mistreated my mom and has tried to make amends, but he has consistently denied any mistreatment to my sister and I. They are still together, but the dynamic has shifted. Last night was one of those nights. I was not there but have seen it play out. My father was passive-aggressive for days, until my mother started arguing. Their argument turned into a full-blown one. Today, my brother, who had never endured my dad's antics, was sarcastic about my mom being a tyrant. I responded soberly to him that the women in our family have learned to demand to be treated with basic respect because asking nicely has not borne fruit. But I mentioned the luggage incident as a minor example of what our mother endured for years. My brother responded that if this bothered me, I lack emotional intelligence. That hurt. A little later, my father called and asked if he could talk to me. I responded with, "No, you cannot until you become a better father to my sister and I. Until you show to your son that he cannot call me emotionally and intelligent for expecting a strong man, whom I have consistently served, to lift my heavy-for-me luggage in return." My father started crying and said that he knows he was wrong but he has excuses, and I told him that sorry but doesn't cut it anymore. My brother is calling me the a-hole for not having a compassionate response. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. When your brother called you emotionally unintelligent, he meant to call you difficult to subdue. It seems that the patriarchy in your family is finally being called to justice, so to speak, and they don't like finding themselves on the other end of the stick. They're sorry they got caught, not that they were horrible. If your mom hadn't developed an aggressive stance toward your father, things would be the same to this day, and he wouldn't feel remorse as long as she kept playing the role he envisioned for her, you and your sister. Your brother's comment was daft, and shows clearly as water that he's grown to be his father's son and would continue to disrespect the women in his life if they let him. You are entitled to express your feelings. That is very much what I responded. They just claim their point of view with such certainty and indignation that it makes me wonder. They're grasping at straws not to be outed as the horrible people they are/were. You're not falling for it because you're emotionally intelligent as it seems. So they, your brother in this instance, tried to insult you into silence, in my opinion. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry your dad is like this, and it appears your brother is following the same pattern. I highly recommend the book Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It's eye-opening, and if your dad is actually changing in any way, he might recognize himself in it. Am I the a-hole for calling out a friend's divorce because she wouldn't leave my husband alone? My husband works with a girl named Lucy, who also happens to be part of our social circle. I wouldn't say she's close to us, but she's a close friend of a friend, so we'll see her once in a while when there are group outings. She also works with my husband, John, and I guess because we also see her outside of work, she thinks she's super close to my husband. I'm not a super jealous type, but I drew a line when my husband himself voiced discomfort at Lucy's behavior. She likes to make jokes about being his work wife, try and push me out of conversations with my husband, like, you weren't at the office, so you wouldn't understand, and has tried to initiate one-on-one hangouts with my husband. John has turned her down, and has also explicitly told her that she was making him feel uncomfortable and to stop. She's just laughed and brushed it off, and still continues. He hasn't brought it up to work yet because she's a single mom and he didn't want to get her in trouble. Her advances have mostly been just annoying, but it recently escalated, which brings us to the issue. At a barbecue, my husband was sitting around a fire pit with his friends. I got up to get food, and I came back right as Lucy came and sat down on my husband's lap while joking, "Your work wife can entertain you while your normal wife is busy." This was the first time she made a physical advance, and my husband immediately jumped up and pushed her off. She laughed and told him to stop being so sensitive, and I could tell it embarrassed my husband. It was at this point that I told her, maybe if you had focused more on being a real wife instead of a work wife, you wouldn't be divorced. Lucy immediately left the party after that, and I found out from our friend that she cried in her car. She since skipped and avoided all events where I'm there with my husband, which has caused a strain with our mutual friend. Most of our other friends were on my side, but some said I was too harsh and that Lucy was just kidding around. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. Lucy is trying to steal your husband. Thankfully, he is a good guy and isn't having it. Time for him to go to HR. There's a non-zero chance that she'll go first and report him for harassment. Good luck. He needs to file that yesterday. He should expect fallout for not addressing this more seriously. Work friends turn on each other constantly. Not a-hole. Lucy crossed a big line and needed to be put in her place publicly. It's probably the only way you and your husband could get her to stop. Bold and brazen, while trying to cloak it as a joke. Wow. Also, all of the kinder and subtler ways were tried and dismissed. Was it harsh? Maybe. Necessary? Definitely. Not a-hole. Not a-hole. Lucy is lucky that she just felt your wrath, rather than your husband going to HR like he should. I understand completely why your husband doesn't want to. There are probably two reasons. One, he really doesn't want her to get in trouble. And two, it's embarrassing for a man to say they are being harassed. You should probably tell your husband that he needs to go to HR about it. She shouldn't lose her job over one instance, and she'll hopefully learn a very valuable lesson. Harassment at the workplace isn't a game. He needs to go to HR and get the facts on record before she goes and tries to twist the story. Unfortunately, he might need to start a resume as well, because HR can see it as who is the bigger liability. Hopefully his job performance is better than a single mom trying to steal someone else's husband and keeping him as in the company's better interest. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting people at our pool? My fiancé and I own a house with a pool in the backyard. His brother Jay had asked the day before if him and his family, wife plus 3 kids, could come over on Sunday to swim after one of the kids' sport games, which was at a park close by to us. Now, fiancé and I own a business together that requires working from home on Sundays. Everyone that we know is aware of this, including his brother. I voiced my opinion that I felt it was weird for people to be at our place while we were working in the basement. But fiancé assured me that it would just be chill. He said it's normal for a family to use people's pool even if they weren't home. So, we let them come thinking that they would swim for maybe an hour then leave. But it wasn't just them. Fiancé's parents also came. We figured they would. But the kicker is that Jay also invited 2 of his friends plus their partners and their kids as well. We do know these people, but both fiancé and I were not aware of this beforehand. So now it's a full-on party in our backyard while we are working in the basement. I became very annoyed that they did not only invite themselves, but some of their friends as well. It made me feel guilty that I couldn't be in my own backyard to host people because I was working. It also felt like they were just using the house and didn't really care about seeing us, the homeowners. Not to mention, the house was a complete mess. We had a busy Friday and Saturday, and I didn't bother cleaning much before because I figured it would just be Jay's family. Everyone was here from 1 p.m. till 7 p.m. We finished work around 3 p.m., at which time, fiancé put on his swim trunks to join them outside. I got in a pretty bitter mood from it all and stayed inside. I didn't even say hello to anyone because I figured they weren't even here to see me, just my pool. I did some laundry and some cleaning up, and I did end up seeing a few people who were coming inside to use the washrooms. I said hi and tried to make some small talk, but I really wasn't happy. Fiancé came in and said that I was creating an awkward/unwelcoming atmosphere by not being outside. I told him I never planned to have a party today, so I was just carrying on doing what I originally had planned. which was laundry and cleaning. Fiancé keeps saying that I was rude for not joining them outside after work. He also says things like, the pool is meant to be used, and that it's family time. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, answering those who have asked, we bought this house together completely 50-50. Fiancé keeps saying that I was rude for not joining them outside after work. Not the a-hole. You're not obliged to host a party you didn't want, with people you didn't invite. Agreed. She also has a fiancé problem. Just sounds like the fiancé is more laid back about friends and family using the pool than Opie is. Opie was perfectly capable of asking them to leave after an hour or so, and could easily have said they needed a peace and quiet to work. Waiting until it's gone on a while then sulking/cold shouldering everyone is childish. Whether the family brought a couple extra people unannounced or not. Not that that isn't a bit rude itself. The fiancé is more laid back about friends and family using the pool than Opie. Of course he is. It's his side of the family. It's very usual to have an agreement that each spouse deals with their own side of the family, to prevent some "how dare you say that" comments. Wanna bet that neither the fiancé nor his brother and his extended uninvited guests would be amenable to Opie going out there and say, "People, that's enough. I have work to do." This is a fiancé problem, not a brother-in-law problem. Not the a-hole. This is the most concise statement that sums up the real issue. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a problem, just a pretty severe misalignment when it comes to the pool/having guests over/boundaries. Sounds like Opie's fiancé likes having guests over and doesn't mind people using their pool whenever. And it is his pool too. He does get a say in who uses it and when. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not contributing to my boyfriend's home renovations? My boyfriend and I, both in our 30s, have been together for almost 2 years. Each make decent money, though he makes almost twice my income, and plan to marry and have kids in a year. Less than a year into dating, I agreed to move into his house, which he owned for several years at that point. Before officially moving in, all he requested to me was to pay 40% of the monthly mortgage and utilities payment and to take turns buying groceries. I gladly agreed and have consistently done that. I've also been paying for everyday necessities, such as toilet paper, soap, paper towels, etc. And we use my car 90% of the time because he's pointed out that my car is more gas efficient. I always pay for gas too. I estimate these extra monthly costs to be around $400 to $500 and never complain. Since the beginning of our relationship, he shared his home renovation plan starting with the bathrooms, which he estimates to cost at least $10,000. I like the idea because the improvements would be nice to have. Floor-to-ceiling marble, glass shower doors, and new windows to add natural light. There are currently no issues with the bathrooms, but he insists we should get it done before we have kids, and would like me to contribute. I've always been upfront about my hesitation to contribute large amounts to a home I don't own because we aren't married yet, and I'm not on the deed. I also don't want to be like his ex who contributed to similar expenses, and obviously that didn't work out. I told him it would give me comfort in knowing I contribute large amounts to something I also own, and also shared my insecurity about ending up like his ex, which he thinks is ridiculous because nothing's guaranteed anyway. We could marry and divorce. He recently had other improvements made to the house which costed about $10,000. I didn't help pay or request these things, but I have made previous comments about how these upgrades would be nice to have eventually. Lately, it seems my boyfriend has been building resentment towards me for not contributing more because he's made comments that my monthly mortgage contribution doesn't help a lot and that it feels like he will always be alone in this. I've told him I have no issues with contributing more once I'm on the deed. Edit. I wanted to provide a little clarification/extra info in response to some of the comments. The 40% I pays towards the mortgage and utility bills, and by his calculations, the total for that is $800. That, plus the extra $400 to $500 I spend, brings my monthly contribution to about $1,200 to $1,300. According to a quick Google search, the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in my city is about $1,600. We're both aware that I pay less than the average, and I've expressed my gratitude for not having to pay that much anymore. I rented a one-bedroom apartment before moving in and have done this for years. Also aware that utilities like electricity and gas can fluctuate, so I'm also grateful to pay a fixed amount towards that every month. Although we mostly use my car and I always pay for gas and the monthly city parking, he is very experienced and handy with cars, and has done my oil changes, so I have not had to bring my car in for maintenance at a shop. Not the a-hole. Don't pay for work on a house you have no legal claim to. Quite honestly, you need to take a step back from paying the amount you do, in my opinion. I could see covering/splitting utilities and groceries, but why are you paying any amount of money to a mortgage you're not on? And in addition to that, you're the one putting all those miles on your car. And if he doesn't contribute to gas, I'm assuming he doesn't contribute to maintenance either. And you're not even the first partner he's pulled this crap with? I don't know, bestie. The red flags are starting to pile up. She's paying it for rent. Why should she live there rent-free? But the renovations? Yeah, she definitely shouldn't pay for those. Not a-hole. He basically made a rental agreement with you, but expects you to contribute like you're an owner. If he feels like he'll always be alone in this, then he should formalize your partnership. This is it. Does that mean he never plans to marry? Never plans to co-own assets, including a house? Because that's a flag of a certain color flapping in the breeze there. Not a-hole. Don't contribute to something you don't own without more agreement. If he raises the rent, discuss the gas and other costs. As far as the house goes, you're a tenant. As partners, though, it's time for a serious discussion about plans and timelines and feelings, especially if you're thinking about kids in a year or so. I would only contribute to the renovations if there was a signed notarized note detailing the monies given with a stipulation that the funds would be returned in the event the relationship doesn't work out. He could just be a man trying to build a home and life for you both, but he makes twice your income, expects 40% of mortgage for rent, and uses your car 90% of the time. That's an uneven split of costs. This smells like the guy's dangling the carrots of marriage and family to primp his home that you have no ownership claim to. Not the a-hole. You are right to think twice. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's friend she was wrong to leave her alone? Yesterday, I had plans to take my son to a water park. I asked my friend's wife, who is good friends with my wife, to stay with her for the day. She can't really be alone right now because of her health. All of these plans were made in advance. When I got home, my wife was alone with our baby, and her friend was not there. I contacted a friend who said that my wife cussed her out and told her to get out of her home and her life. I understand that's a lot to put up with, but she didn't even call to tell me she was leaving her alone. She told me she didn't call me because my wife is a grown woman and everyone needs to stop coddling her. I said that wasn't her decision and I felt betrayed by what she did. She called me a disaster whose life is falling apart and that instead of passing judgment on her, I should shut up and listen for once. I didn't mean to offend her. I was just shocked by what she did. But her extreme response makes me think I did something wrong. Was I an a-hole for judging her actions? You're the a-hole. If your wife can't be left alone, you need to hire a caretaker, not pawn her health off on friends. Her friend has no obligation to be mistreated by your wife, especially when you're off having a fun day at the water park. You're stressed, and you and your wife are taking it out on someone who tried to do you guys a favor. This PPD is no joke. You put yourself first and took it out on her friend. You need to prioritize her. OMG, read his prior post. He got his ex knocked up. Don't let him say it's PPD. It's husband making bad decisions depression. Read the whole post history. They're separated because she keeps talking to her racist father, keeps inviting him to the dinner OP's cooking, and begging OP to stay. Yes, OP messed up, but let's not act like this dumpster fire of a marriage is just on him. You left her while she's suffering. So, I've stayed with her for months after my initial request for a divorce because she said she needed me. I almost lost my job because of her. I almost lost my son. She has alienated herself from almost all of our friends and is trying to prevent me from maintaining contact with them. Where is the line? When does it stop? I love the person she used to be, that I thought she was. But when does it end? Is this my life now? Have you taken her to see a doctor to put her on meds? Please take the baby from her and hire a caretaker for her until she's better. Continue on with your divorce, but know you have to pay child support. Right now, sir, for the friend incident, you're the a-hole. You need to listen to the friend. Good luck, dude. She wouldn't return after the first appointment, nor will she take the medication that was prescribed. I cannot afford to hire a caretaker for her, especially since she almost got me fired by calling my boss and telling him if she died, it would be his fault when I had to go into the office for a mandatory 1-hour meeting. If something like that is truly happening, then you need to call the police or a mental health facility to get your wife the help she desperately needs. At this point, she is a danger to herself and to your baby. Money be damned, would you rather be in debt from getting your wife help? Or in debt from 1 or possibly 2 funerals because you didn't take this seriously? Because that is the route you are risking right now. And putting that on your friend is absolutely disgusting and out-of-line behavior. That is an out-of-line request. That is not your friend's job to deal with that, and you should never have put that on them.